Introduction to the Documentary Section, 2014. From the author. January 2022. My name is Katerina Mostova. I am a photographer, sociologist, activist, and cultural figure. I lived in Luhansk, Ukraine, from 1992 to 2014. In 2014, the Russian Federation annexed the Crimean Peninsula and launched military aggression in Donbas. As a result of Russia's unlawful actions, 13,000 Ukrainian citizens lost their lives, according to official data. Approximately 3.5 million people were forced to leave their homes, relocating either to Ukrainian-controlled territories, Russia, or other countries. Being inside this situation, I never considered that some people might be unaware of the crimes Russians were committing in the occupied territories. But at the end of 2021, I attended a small private gathering where a displaced woman from Luhansk shared her harrowing story from the summer of 2014. The other guests, people from different regions of Ukraine who had no personal connections to Crimea or Donbas, were shocked by what they heard. That was the moment I realized how one's reality and experiences can differ drastically from those of others. We often interact with people, have pleasant conversations, and yet have no idea what they have endured or what tragedies they have faced. Too often, we fail to recognize the importance of being attentive and sensitive to others' emotions. Many stories remained confined within private conversations among acquaintances. To make these stories visible, to reveal the human side of the statistics we see in the news, and to document these events, I launched the 2014 project. Behind every number in statistical reports lies a human life, a personal fate. This project was a serious challenge for me. How do you talk to people knowing the immense pain and tragedy they carry? How do you avoid re-traumatizing them while asking them to revisit painful memories? How do you present and structure this material appropriately? To bring structure to the project, I developed a series of common questions and asked them to each participant. Many of them are people I have known personally for a long time. I was already familiar with their stories, yet I still found myself crying as I reread them while preparing this project. Some participants were strangers who joined after I announced the project on social media. This project is documentary, not artistic. My main goal was to provide participants with a judgment-free space to share their experiences. I did not alter their structure, tone, or style of writing, only correcting spelling and typographical errors. However, for security purposes, I changed some participants' personal details at their request. I imposed no language restrictions on participants, although I was pleased that some responses were provided in Ukrainian. Everyone willing to share their story had the opportunity to do so. My own opinions may not always align with those of the participants. According to the Ministry of Social Policy of Ukraine, by late summer 2021, nearly 1.5 million internally displaced persons, IDPs, from Donbas and Crimea had been officially registered in Ukraine. Here, I will share the stories of 15 of them. January 2024. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which remains in its active phase, claiming Ukrainian lives every day. As of November 2023, there were nearly 7 million Ukrainian refugees and 5 million internally displaced persons officially registered. 22,000 civilians had been killed. We do not yet know the full number of civilians murdered in the occupied territories, but it is certain to be a horrifying figure. On February 25, 2024, the official number of military losses was announced. 31,000 Ukrainian defenders had been killed by Russians since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. It was time to ask the project participants, how have these 2 years been for them? Once again, I posed the same set of questions to everyone. Some participants chose not to take part this time, while new ones joined the project. For years, under Russian occupation and influence, the Ukrainian language was actively suppressed and erased as part of Russia's ongoing policy of Russification. The consequences of these actions will be felt for a long time. However, since the start of the full-scale war, many Russian-speaking Ukrainians, witnessing firsthand the stark differences between Russian and Ukrainian societies, have begun to question, why is Russian their native language? Why do they use it in their daily lives? This led to a wave of historical inquiry, self-identification, and a search for ways to distance themselves from the enemy. In January 2022, I conducted all interviews in Russian. Participants responded in both Russian and Ukrainian. In January 2024, I conducted the interviews in Ukrainian. Nearly all returning participants chose to respond in Ukrainian. To track these changes in self-identification and language choice, I will include a note before each response indicating the language in which it was originally provided. Throughout this project, I wanted to give a voice to those who have experienced war, so their stories are never forgotten. I hoped to contribute a little bit in documenting, remembering, and showing the suffering of ordinary people who could be your neighbors, your friends, or even members of your family. I also want to show why we need to keep fighting and why we must protect the values of democracy and liberty. January 2022. What was your summer like in 2014? What prompted you to leave or stay? Is there a story of yours or your close ones that you would like to share? What struck you the most? How did the year 2014 change your life? If you had the chance to go back to 2014, would you do something differently? If yes, what specifically? How do you feel about your life now? Do you have any regrets? Do you plan your future? If yes, for what term? January 2024. On January 24, 2022, a full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia began. What was this day like for you? What were your feelings, and how did you react? Were you forced to leave Ukraine, perhaps temporarily? If not, proceed to the next question. If yes, share your experience abroad. Were you in one country the whole time? Did you move to several countries? Did you have to learn a new language, adapt to a new profession, etc.? Where are you now? Do you plan to return to Ukraine when the military actions end? What motivated you to stay in Ukraine? How were these 2 years of full-scale Russian invasion in Ukraine for you? What is your current emotional state? What changes and transformations have occurred with you, if any, as a person during these 2 years of full-scale invasion? If you could go back to 2014, would you do anything differently? Do you plan your future? If yes, for what term? How do you envision the future of Ukraine?